I know we were finally going on a trip after so long, but I'm really sorry. An emergency came up at work, so we have to cancel. I'll make it up to you later, I promise.
Today was the day we had reservations at a fancy hotel for our couple's getaway. Shaken by the call from Kevin, I asked him why. But he was clearly acting strange, dodging the conversation. Suspecting something was wrong, I immediately called our daughter, Nancy.
It figures. All right, I'll handle things from here. Mom, you stay put at home. I'll prepare and head over right away.
Okay, I'll be waiting. I had always felt something off about Kevin's actions. Even before he became a CEO, when he was younger, there was something peculiar about him. It's hard to shake the feeling of mistrust, but of course, as a CEO, it's natural for him to be at the company. I called Kevin again, urging him to come home soon. When Kevin returned home in the morning, he apologized loudly as soon as he entered the doorway.
I'm sorry.
What a frustrating person. Okay, look behind you for a second. When Kevin turned around, his face went pale the moment he saw me and the person next to me. My name is Laura, and I'm a 45-year-old stay-at-home mom. Up until 2 years ago, I lived with my husband, Kevin, and our daughter, Nancy, but recently, Nancy got married. As a working adult, Nancy and her husband, George, started living together, and now it's just Kevin and me at home. Kevin has been the CEO of a well-known company since his early 30s, which allowed us to live comfortably when Nancy was young. We often went on trips as a family of 3. Nancy also looked forward to traveling, and she closely monitored whether Kevin had properly made the hotel reservations. Kevin always took care of booking the hotels and paying for everything. Even when I offered to pay, he insisted on handling it. We were a couple who expressed gratitude to each other, and to outsiders, we must have seemed very close. We never forgot to show our appreciation, and I was diligent about managing our finances. However, this story is from when Nancy was still young. As Nancy entered middle school, Kevin's behavior began to change gradually. When I picked up Nancy from school and returned home, Kevin, who was usually there, was absent. I tried calling him several times, but he never answered. Sometimes he would come home and just fall asleep on the couch while messing with his smartphone. And that wasn't all. Even though he used to contribute financially to the household, he stopped completely. When Nancy wanted to have a wedding ceremony, Kevin was visibly displeased and dismissive. When she mentioned wanting children, he outright rejected the idea, assuming it would only lead to future hardships. As her parents, we should have wanted to support her, but Kevin refused to listen to Nancy's views and kept imposing his own.
You're young. You should be the ones to put up the money yourselves.
What kind of way is that to talk? It's unfair to Nancy. Just because they are young doesn't mean they can easily afford it. I argued this because I care about Nancy. But Kevin just scoffed and said,
Isn't it the truth? After all the hard work we've put into raising her, she should be supporting us now.
Does that mean we shouldn't support her, though? Even as I got angry, Kevin's views didn't change. Why is he always so negative? The old Kevin would never have said such things. In fact, he used to be very supportive, especially when Nancy was born. When Nancy was just a baby, he used to say that parenting should come before work. It might have been because many people around us were stay-at-home moms, but Kevin was very kind not just to me but also to Nancy. Even when work was hectic, Kevin always made sure to come home, and I remember how he found solace just by looking at Nancy's sleeping face. He used to prioritize loving her. What changed him so much? Thinking about it only gives me a headache, so I took up exercising as a hobby to build up my strength. Of course, Nancy was shocked by Kevin's rejection. Meanwhile, Kevin, who had been the one to reject her, was increasingly absent from home. At that time, I received a call from Nancy.
Sorry, Mom. I don't want Dad to know, but I'm pregnant. I can't come home anymore, so I thought I'd tell you in advance.
I see. I'm relieved. I thought you had given up because of what Dad said.
No way. I've always said I wanted children. I'll make sure to raise them well.
Yeah, I see. Do your best, Nancy, but don't overdo it, okay? You should rely on others sometimes.
Got it.
Nancy seemed happy as she replied. Thinking that I must not tell Kevin about this conversation, I decided that the best thing to do when he returned home was to act as usual and say nothing. Months have passed since Kevin stopped coming home. I received a message from Nancy with a photo. It was a report that her child had been born. The screen showed a cute child who looked just like Nancy. How cute! I'm really glad that the mother and child are safe. As I was crying, Kevin appeared out of nowhere and snatched my smartphone with a threatening tone.
She went and had a kid.
How can you say such a horrible thing? That's your own daughter. It's your first grandchild. Don't you think she's cute? Give me back my smartphone.
No way! I thought you and Nancy were up to something, but it seems I was right. What's next? A wedding? I won't approve it.
Kevin suddenly returned home and began to deny even Nancy's private life. I couldn't understand why he was so fixated, and I argued back. There are no parents who don't support their own daughter. Maybe you should think about your own role.
And when are you planning to start working? You've been a stay-at-home mom forever. I don't want to hear this from someone who hasn't made a move even after her daughter has grown up.
Ouch, that hits hard. The reason I've been a stay-at-home mom without working is that I was raising Nancy. While I acknowledge there is some truth to his point, I still intend to keep supporting Nancy. On the other hand, Kevin always complains without ever really being home. Even when he was at home, he would leave for work again as soon as possible. I, too, couldn't stand him because of this fact. Being in my 40s makes finding a job not so easy. When I discussed this with Nancy, she mentioned that upskilling is a popular term in the current job market. So, I decided to upskill myself to be able to work. With the help of online courses, I finally acquired some new skills. With Nancy's support, I was able to start working from home after a long hiatus. Seeing this, Kevin looked puzzled. He seemed shocked, probably because he thought I was still just a stay-at-home mom. I had never seen that expression on his face before, and I couldn't help but laugh. "This is fine, right?"
Right. I never thought I'd see the day you start working. That's why I'm surprised.
Despite his criticism about me not working, he still spoke in a condescending tone when I finally started working. Why does he only know how to talk down to me? Just as I was about to retort, Kevin made a suggestion.
Now that you're working, we can stay at fancy hotels, right?
What's he talking about now? Fancy hotels? Oh, the ones we talked about wanting to visit together back then. It was back when Kevin and I were newlyweds, not long after we started living together. At that time, traveling was my hobby. I had stayed at every local hotel and was being a bit demanding about wanting to go somewhere else. That's when I found out I was pregnant with Nancy and decided to prioritize parenting. Since then, there haven't been any trips for the three of us together. My days were filled with housework. Kevin was the CEO of a well-known company, and Nancy went to school. I had forgotten for a while, but I finally remembered. Truth be told, I still want to travel. I've been wanting to go on a trip for just the two of us for some time, so I was honestly very happy when he brought it up. But seeing how Kevin has been acting recently, I wonder if it was a good idea to go together after all. I thought this could be a chance to spend some quality time as a couple, but our relationship was still strained. I decided to tentatively make a suggestion to Kevin. Just to be safe, before any whims come up, I wanted to leave the decision on whether we go on a trip to Kevin. Shall we go together?
Yeah, don't you think it'd be nice for us to spend some time together as a couple after so long?
But what about the money? I can't get it ready right away.
Don't worry, I'll cover it.
That's it. Kevin is the CEO of a well-known company. I got so caught up in his poor attitude towards Nancy, but he still remembered about our previous plan to go on a trip as a couple. Excited, I decided to start preparing a week before the reservation date. It seemed there was no need to worry about money, but just to be safe, I decided to bring the money I had earned from working from home. However, the day before we were supposed to leave for the fancy hotel, Kevin suddenly called.
I know we were finally going on a trip after so long, but I'm really sorry. An emergency came up at work, so we have to cancel. I'll make it up to you later, I promise.
I was looking forward to it, but then Kevin canceled on the day of the reservation. Frustrated, I violently pulled out the clothes from the neatly packed carry-on bag, and tears overflowed. Does he think it's okay to blame everything on work? Even if I asked Kevin for a reason why we can't go, he always dodges the question and doesn't consult with me. I was really looking forward to it. I just don't get that man. I muttered quietly and then cried out loud. After a while, I managed to calm my emotions. Enough. I don't just want a marriage in name. I want a real partnership. I'm going to stop hoping and expecting us to be a cooperative couple. I called Nancy's cell phone. Then, I heard George's voice over the phone. Nancy and George were talking about something, but I couldn't make out what it was. However, Nancy seemed a bit frantic, and George was calm as they sounded like they were arguing. It must be about that issue. It seems the results of the task I had asked both Nancy and George to handle had come out. This matter apparently required Kevin and me to be together, so they decided to come over to our house on short notice. Before Nancy and George arrived, I tried to contact Kevin on his cell phone. But as expected, it went straight to voicemail. Hearing the familiar voicemail greeting, I couldn't help but feel irritated. After several redials, I finally got through to Kevin. It was Sunday. Even though he left early in the morning and it was already evening, Kevin hasn't returned home yet. Common reasons for divorce include debt or affairs. Despite my bad feeling, I asked Kevin, "Nancy is coming over today. Please come home early. There's something important we need to discuss."
Important discussion? Wait, I already told you I had to cancel our trip because of an emergency at work, didn't I?
Kevin seemed almost smugly amused. It's hard to believe a company with a full weekend off would be working on a Sunday. Additionally, it's known as a white company, which implies ethical business practices. They wouldn't be doing something so off base. But if we only listen to Kevin's side, even the white company claim could be a lie. If I could make a case, Kevin, as the president, would have to comply. I decided to discuss the information George had uncovered about Kevin. "I'm listening, but the whole story sounds off. Actually, you have a mountain of debt, don't you?"
What? Well, on what basis are you saying that? I don't understand.
From your reaction, it seems to be true. So, if you don't come home, I'll throw out all your belongings. I'm serious. I could hear my voice trembling. Honestly, I didn't want to believe the details Nancy and George had dug up. Yet, looking at Kevin's recent behaviors, the mention of debt now made sense. It's natural for a wife not to want to believe such things.
Please, don't throw away my things. I'm begging you.
No, if you're not going to face this properly, I'm considering divorce.
Wait, okay. I'll apologize. Just give me some time.
Apologies aren't enough. I'll believe it when I see action. I'll be waiting at home. After hanging up the phone, I could feel my body shaking terribly. Always being on the receiving end of harsh words or having to keep my cool has always been hard. Exhausted, I ended up sitting down at the front door. Kevin's company operates with full weekends off. Kevin, now the president, continues to improve its performance, so there shouldn't be any financial issues. But something must have changed along the way. Likewise, something must have changed between us as a couple, too. I didn't choose to live with Kevin just to feel this way. Just then, Nancy arrived at the house. Seeing me sitting dejected at the front door, she looked worried and leaned in.
Mom, are you okay? George is here too. He's more capable than me, so let's get everything out in the open when Dad arrives.
Yo, sorry for showing you this pathetic side of me.
Don't worry about it, it's okay. And today, I really wanted to eat your cooking. Do you think you're up to it now? Should I help?
Nancy, now a mother herself, offered to take over the household chores for me. Ah, that's right. I was also desperate to live up to being a mother. I might have been too focused on my own struggles to see anything else, but it was all to protect my child. I thought Kevin would be home late at night or by morning, so we prioritized cooking dinner together for now. While preparing dinner with Nancy, I noticed that George hadn't shown up yet. Where's George?
George said he'd wait outside because of the situation with Dad. Plus, we can't just leave our child alone. So after dropping our child off at George's parents', he's waiting in the car.
Right, it's dangerous to leave a child alone.
Yeah, and we don't want to expose our child to our parents' arguments, right? George and I just want to live peacefully.
As I looked up startled, Nancy gave me a reassuring smile. Parents' arguments. Maybe Nancy has been enduring her share of struggles too. I felt a mix of emotions wash over me. Then, I got a notification on my smartphone from Kevin, which was in my pocket. The message from Kevin said he would be home tomorrow morning.
I'll contact George. We need to prepare too.
I'll get ready as well. How about we all have a light dinner before that?
That sounds good.
Until Kevin arrived, Nancy, George, and I decided to get together and have dinner. George entered looking apologetic and apologized for the delay in making the formal marriage greeting. He's kind not to worry about the formalities. I felt warmed by his gesture. Seeing the dishes on the table, George looked surprised. When I asked him about it, he smiled happily and said he was amazed by how authentic the cooking was.
Moreover, it's sad that Kevin doesn't come home to eat such delicious food.
I'm used to it, really. As long as Nancy and you occasionally come to visit, that's enough for me.
Is that so? That's good to hear. I feel like I can fully confront Kevin now.
That's good. There's much I've turned a blind eye to. I'll count on both of you tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Leave it to us.
They looked at each other and burst out laughing. They get along so well. Truthfully, I'm jealous of their good relationship. Back to the issue at hand, the main thing for us to clarify then was Kevin's true intentions. The mention of debt had shaken him, confirming my intuition was right. Also, the information the two had investigated was correct. That fact alone clung to my mind and saddened me. After dinner and clearing up, we held a strategy meeting for tomorrow morning. We planned to make it as smooth as possible, ensuring Kevin couldn't dodge the issues. I despise how Kevin seems to please others only to remain in a safe zone himself. After the meeting, we decided to sleep in the same room. In the morning, I received a message from Kevin saying, "I'll be there soon." I relayed the message to the others, and we took our planned positions. While I didn't want to think this would be the end, the fact was that we have been struggling up until this point. Even if it were to come to divorce, I have no regrets about ending this marriage relationship. Still, I occasionally think that maybe I could have handled things better. Maybe if I had dealt with this earlier, we might not have had to struggle so much. If it weren't for Nancy and George's comforting presence, I probably wouldn't have been able to make this decision. As a parent and as an individual, I feel pathetic. Then, just then, Kevin burst into the house. He started apologizing as soon as he entered the front door. The door remained wide open, and he was shouting so loudly that the neighbors could probably hear.
I'm sorry, Laura. I'll book a fancy hotel again, and we'll go together.
This must have been his way of thinking. Unfortunately, his words didn't touch my heart at all. Feeling out of place, as if his voice reached no one, Kevin repeatedly called my name while searching the house. But I wasn't there. Because I was in the car that Nancy and George were using.
Now's the time, Mom.
That's right. I'll do my best.
Yeah, go for it.
With Nancy's words of encouragement, I got out of the car. Kevin appeared at the front door, about to re-enter the house. Hey, wait. When I called out to him, he turned around with a startled yelp. I took a deep breath before speaking again. I need to talk to you, Kevin.
Talk. Can't we just reschedule the trip sometime?
Well, okay. Look behind you for a second.
Turn around.
Kevin turned towards me. Then he saw Nancy and George standing behind me. However, when Kevin saw George, he looked terribly frightened.
You are.
Long time no see, Kevin. I'm married to Nancy, you know. Did you forget that?
No, I know.
Where did all his bluster go? George greeted him with a smile and offered his hand for a handshake. But Kevin brushed the hand away and shouted in anger.
What happened to my request? You said I'd know the results soon, and then nothing.
Oh, is that so? You've been sneaking around, trying to strike it rich from morning till night.
What are you talking about? I haven't heard anything about that.
Of course, we have proof. Laura was worried about you, but as Nancy said, you're just a man chasing quick riches.
Then George pulled out several credit cards he had somehow confiscated. Given Kevin's pursuits of quick riches, he ended up taking loans whose amounts were too high to be repayable.
Let's end this. I don't think you can fix anything now. You should apologize to Laura first, like a man should.
Kevin looked like it was the end of the world and muttered something under his breath. Then he apologized in a barely audible whisper. Thanks to George, a skilled attorney, Kevin's debts were uncovered. I conveyed to George that there was no point in continuing to live together any longer.
That's right.
Then George proceeded with the arrangements. The debts on Kevin's credit cards had to be reduced. However, I thought it was important for him to take responsibility, so I informed him that I would not cooperate.
Should we proceed with the divorce then?
Yes, please.
Understood. I will review the divorce papers and then discuss them again with Kevin as your representative, if that's okay with you?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you as well.
Though I had given my consent as a representative, George mentioned that he would also obtain consent from the person concerned later on. After that, Kevin started doing cleaning jobs. He said he was paying the price for having freely spent money as a CEO. He has some nerve saying that, given it's all his own doing. We also decided to have one last discussion before submitting our divorce papers.
I don't want to split up.
Kevin kept throwing tantrums right to the end. But it was time for him to stop the futile resistance. I believe it's absolutely wrong for anyone to ever cause trouble for others. And it's better to speak up, rather than keeping secrets until they inevitably spill out. Money is so convenient that it can also bring one's life crashing down. After that, Kevin and I got divorced. I started living alone, something I had long wished for, but it was lonely after always living with someone. When Nancy heard this, she came to me.
Mom, why don't we live together?
Are you sure?
Of course.
Nancy happily agreed. Nancy and George greeted me, along with their little daughter, who was born when I was in the midst of all the legal procedures. Her tiny hand gripped my finger tightly. Oh, how adorable she is, so precious. Her big, innocent eyes locked on me, and I felt deeply grateful. Seeing this, Nancy and George smiled happily.
Mom, I have a surprise for you.
A surprise.
Yes, can you feel my stomach?
I could slightly feel Nancy's belly twitch. Could it be a second one?
Yes, apparently it was already on the way when we were planning to expose Dad's debts.
That's wonderful. I'm happy to have the chance to be involved in childcare again.
Yes, we're counting on you for a while, Mom.
Sure, leave it to me. I replied happily, with Nancy smiling beside me. George also seemed eager to join the conversation.
Of course, I'll help out too.
His display of defiance was quite unusual, causing Nancy to laugh amusingly. George is serious not just in work, but also in childcare. And so, Nancy was busy preparing for the birth of their second child. Not wanting to be outdone by the young couple, I decided to start yoga. As you age, maintaining physical strength can be challenging. If you're going to be raising grandchildren, you need to ensure you're physically up to the task. Mindful of finances and everyday life, I'm committed to living happily and cooperatively.